Okay, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Jacob Teacher YouTube channel. I'm very happy to be with you today. I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope you're having, well, it's Wednesday right now, so it's already the middle of the week. I hope you're having a great week. It's been a crazy few days for me. I've been really busy, but I am happy to be back here with you on YouTube in these live lessons. So I've got a great live lesson for us tonight. It was actually this topic that I'm going to be talking about was requested by one of you, so I'm really excited to talk about it. It's a difficult one, but before we start, I just want to make a quick announcement here. I did a live presentation on my Facebook page yesterday about a English language club that I am going to test. It's an idea that I've had for a while. I sent a survey out to my email list, and many of you responded telling me what you were struggling with in English. Based on your answers, I've come up with an idea for an English language club, and I'm going to be testing that idea in the next 2 weeks. The cost to enter for this trial period, for this test version, is $10 for 2 weeks, full money back guarantee. If you want to watch the live presentation that I did yesterday, the replay of the live presentation rather, the link to that is in the description of this video. And if you want to sign up to take part in this trial version, then the link is also in the description of this video. Okay, now let's talk about today. And by the way, of course, as always, introduce yourself. Tell me where you are watching from. We have Sadawat with us. Hello, Sadawat. Thanks for joining. Diego from Brazil. Abo, peace be upon you. Abo, peace be upon you too. Hello, I find this channel nowadays and it is very beneficial. Thanks a lot, says Kubra. Well, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Kubra, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong for sure, but thank you. I really enjoy making these videos, and I'm glad that you find them helpful. Okay, so today we are talking about, the title of this video says will versus willingness, expressing intention and desire. We're going to be talking about a few more things other than will or willingness. So I have a few bonus words for you that we're going to learn. Sam, I'm doing well. Good to see you back. Thanks for joining. Abo, good to see you too. Hello. Thank you for joining me. I have the chat room open here. I'm going to switch screens now and get into the live lesson. So again, there's lots of questions tonight. Lots of opportunities for participation. Let's get started. Will versus willingness. As I said, this was requested by one of you, and I have the initial email here that I received. It's quite beautifully written, so I wanted to read it. I have problems when I want to express willingness. Interestingly, I don't know how to properly use the word will in this situation. Will, be willing, willingness. This is likely to be a noun. Yes, willingness is a noun. Intend, hope, etc. Something like this. If you have a chance, would you teach me, us, how to use it? Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Well, yes, it would be my pleasure to teach you about this. By the way, if you want to ask me questions, if you're struggling with something and you have a topic that you want me to talk about in these live lessons, join my mailing list, the link to which is also below, and sign up, ask me a question. And I'm always looking for things to talk about, so it makes it really easy when people tell me what they're struggling with so that I can make videos about those issues. So we're talking about will, willingness, expressing desire, intention, stuff like that. And it's a very difficult concept. That's why I wrote advanced English lesson for today. The first word, by the way, how this lesson is going to work, I'm just going to go through each of those words that this person mentioned, and we'll talk about how they're different from one another. So the first, we're going to talk about the word will. Now, important here, what's important is we're not talking about will as in the future tense. I will eat pizza tonight. I will go to the movies tomorrow. We're not talking about that will. We're talking about a different will. It's a noun. It can also be used as a verb, but we're going to look at the noun form today. And what it is, every single one of us, we have this part of us that decides what we want to do and actually initiates the action to do it. And you can think of that part of us as our will, the part that decides what we want to do, and makes those decisions. That is our will. It's a concept that is captured by this word will. Okay, so for example, you could say she had a very strong will. She had a very strong will. What does this mean exactly? It's kind of confusing. When we say that someone has a strong will, what it means is that when they decide to do something, they do it, kind of. They have that faculty that they have, that part of them that decides what they want to do or what they don't want to do, is very strong. They do what they want to do. When they have something that they want to do, that they will, they do it. They end up doing it. So when you say she had a very strong will, it means she was determined. That part of her that decides what to do and then does that thing is very strong. If someone has a weak will, it's the opposite. They don't really do things that they maybe want to do, or they do things maybe that they don't want to do. One word that we often use that is related is willpower. So for example, if you're quitting smoking, you need a lot of willpower to not smoke, because you really want to smoke, but you're trying to quit because it's bad for you. So you need a strong will. You need lots of willpower to quit smoking. Now, we also use this word to talk about the thing that one desires. Okay? For example, it was her will to see her cousin once more before she died. So imagine a woman who is going to die soon. It was her will. It's the thing that she decided that she wants to do, to see her cousin once more before she died. So she wants to do this thing. Another meaning of this word, it actually is a legal form that is filled out before one dies. So before one dies, when one is getting older and knows that one is going to die soon, there's a legal form that people fill out. And what this form says is, or what this form is this person's will. It's what they want to happen with their possessions, so their money, their house, and all of that stuff that they own, what they want to happen with that stuff after they die. And it's called a will. A last will and testament in full, but we refer to it as a will. So you could say, in his will, it was written that all of his money should be given to charity. In his will, it was written that all of his money should be given to charity. So you can think about this as the legal document being his will. It was what he wanted, what he decided that he wanted. It's a little bit confusing of a concept. I know it is a little confusing, but try to think of it always as this part of us that is deciding things and then doing those things. That is our will, okay? A common phrase that you'll hear is against one's will. A common phrase in English. And what that means is that one is not free to actually decide what one wants to do. So maybe I want to do one thing, but I can't do that. Someone is preventing me from doing that. That is against my will. Okay, let's look at an example. Here's a story from the news. This was posted maybe a few weeks ago. So I don't know if this story has changed at all for all of you soccer fans. Maybe you know better than I do. Real Madrid will not keep Cristiano Ronaldo against his will and could sell their star forward for the right price. So what they're saying, Real Madrid, the soccer team, they're not going to keep their star player, Cristiano Ronaldo, against his will. So if Cristiano Ronaldo wants to go to a different team, what they're saying, Real Madrid, is they're not going to keep him against his will. His will, the part of him that decides what he wants to do, has decided, if he has decided that he wants to go somewhere else, they won't hold him back. They won't keep him against his will. So that's a very common phrase that you'll hear often in English. My first question for you tonight, it's using this phrase, and I want you to tell me, what is one thing children often have to do against their will? Okay, so children, they're very young. Sometimes they have to do things that we as adults know are good for them, but they hate doing. I'll give you an example. Children have to go to the dentist, and often it's against their will. When I was a child, I hated going to the dentist. I used to kick and scream and say, I don't want to go. Why are you making me go, Mom? And all this stuff. And she took me against my will. Now, it was the right thing to do. Many times when you prevent someone from doing something, when you're making them go against their will, it's very bad. It's not a good thing. Okay, so this is what we mean by this word will. I'm going to check on the comment section. It looks like we have some more people joining us. Okay. Nadu from Algeria. Nadu, thanks for watching tonight. Sadawat, I have a question. Are we still having these free live lessons when you have the upcoming class? Sadawat, yes, these lessons will continue as normal. There won't be any interruption there. So there will still be hopefully 2 during the week. I always try and do 2 live lessons during the week and 1 pre-recorded lesson, but that one's a little bit more difficult. But yes, these will continue. Okay? We have someone else. Yasmin. Hello, Jacob. I'm from Thailand. Hello, Yasmin. Thank you for joining us tonight. Great. So we have a sentence from Sadawat. Children have to go to bed early against their will. Yes, many times children, they want to stay up really late, but we have to put them to bed against their will. So it's in their best interest. It's good for them to go to bed early, but it might be against their will. This is a very common phrase that's used in law a lot too. If someone is held against their will, you'll hear this phrase coming up a lot in law, in legal terms. Alan says, chocolate is children's will, even if it's against their teeth's health. Yeah, so Alan raises a good point here that I want to talk about. Yes, when we're talking about will, this kind of will, it does have a lot to do with desire. But most of the time, it's much more natural in English to say children want to eat chocolate. We use the word want, or we express desire in different ways. When we're talking about will in this way, we're much more referring to the actual part of us that is kind of deciding and then acting. It's not, we use different phrases to talk about actual desire a lot of the time. So it's much more normal to say children want to eat chocolate even if it's bad for their teeth, you could say. So Alan, you're on the right track, but this is where this word gets a little confusing, okay? So it's understandable. Let's keep going. I'll keep my eye on the comment section. Looks like we have another comment quickly. Abo says children have to go to sleep early against his will. Good. Children is plural there, so remember against their will. Against their will. Okay. Great. Let's keep going. Now, the next word that I want to look at is willing. You'd think that these would be similar, and they are in some sense, but willing is a very different word. Willing. What does willing mean? Willing is a verb that means ready, eager, or prepared to do something. Ready, eager, or prepared to do something. Let's look at a few examples, and then I'll try and explain this more. I'm willing to go to France, Australia, or Mexico this summer. I'm willing to go to France, Australia, or Mexico this summer. Now, an important point, this is really important to know with this word. It doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go. So in that sentence, I'm willing to go to France, Australia, or Mexico this summer. It doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go. It means that I'm prepared to go, that I'm ready to go, okay? A lot of the time with willing, it depends on the context, it depends on the tone, and it just depends on the situation in general. People, we're not always excited to do the thing that we are willing to do. So let me see. I had an example written down here. Well, let's look at this. I'm willing to go to France. I could say if I said it in a different tone. Oh, I'm willing to go to France. If I said it like that, it would imply more that I'm kind of excited to go to France. If I said I'm willing to go to France, it means I'm prepared to, but I'm not necessarily as excited. So the key point, the one that I want you to remember here, it doesn't necessarily mean that you want to do something that you are willing to do. So the next example here, the money is nice, but are you willing to work 80 hours every week? So imagine a mother talking to her daughter who wants to be a doctor, let's say. And she says, the money is nice, so you'll get paid a lot of money, but are you willing to work 80 hours every week? Are you prepared to work 80 hours? Are you ready to make that sacrifice? The next sentence, she's not willing to have any children. So this is in the negative here. She's not willing to have any children. She is not ready to have them. She doesn't want them, is what this essentially means. So the main point here, it doesn't necessarily mean that we want to do something just because we are willing to do it. It means we're prepared to do it. We will do it if it happens. We're ready to do it, but we're not always excited and eager to do it. Here's an example from the news. So recently, well, let's read the sentence first. North Korea is willing to talk, and China is somewhat relieved. North Korea is willing to talk, and China is somewhat relieved. So recently, North Korea, there was talk that they would be willing, so ready and prepared to stop testing their nuclear missiles, and China is happy about that. So this is a perfect example where you can imagine that North Korea is willing to talk. They're probably not so excited about it. Maybe it's not something they want to do, but they're willing to do it. They're prepared. They're ready to do it. My question, name one country other than your own in which you'd be willing to live, and why? Give me a reason why you'd be willing to live in the country you choose. My answer, I'd be willing to live in Japan. I'd be willing to live in Japan. I went there recently. The people were so kind, really nice. Everything was very clean, and mainly because of the people. I think the people there were really beautiful and welcoming, and I like that. I think that made me feel really good. So for that reason, I would be willing to live in Japan. Another note here, you're often going to see this phrase, would be willing. We use that a lot. We're talking about a hypothetical situation. So not something real, something that we're imagining. Would you be willing to live in another country? Let's look at this. Okay, so Nadu says, they have to take showers even if it's against their will. Yes, Nadu says about children, they have to take showers even if it's against their will. Great. Children hate taking showers and baths too. I remember I think I hated taking baths. I'm sure I did for a little while. I'm willing to buy a fancy car, but when I watch my budget, it's against my will. So, Alan, I think So the first part of that sentence makes sense. I'm willing to buy a fancy car. So you're prepared to or you're ready to. But what you're talking about in the second half is more your inability to do it because you're watching your budget. So you wouldn't say against your will. You're free to do it. You're free to purchase the car if you want, but you're not able to because you're watching your budget. So a better word to use there would be I'm unable to. Sadawat says, so in terms of verb, be willing is totally different from will. Yes, they're quite different, Sadawat. They're very different. And to go back to the verb, we didn't look at the verb form of will. There is a verb form. So the king, let's imagine a sentence. The king willed that his people would be wealthy, or something like that. We do use that form to talk about desire, but it's very different, and it's quite rare to talk about desire in that way. To use will as a verb in that form is quite different. And will as a noun, that concept, from willing is very different. They're very different concepts. I hope this is clear. Ask more questions if you're confused, because it is a confusing topic, I know. But willing means to be, like I said, to be prepared and ready to do something. That's what willing means. I'm willing to move to Japan means I'm prepared, I'm ready to move to Japan. Doesn't necessarily mean I want to, but I'm willing to, I'm prepared to. Okay? Kubra says, I will be willing to live in Spain thanks to siestas. Okay. So this is a great example, Kubra, of a time when you could use a hypothetical. You'd want to phrase it as, I would be willing. I would be. You're talking about an unreal situation. I would be willing to live in Spain because of siestas, you could say. Because of would be a little better there. I'm willing to live in Canada because wide country with normal population and good place to reach your life's goal, said Alan. Well, Alan, I'm Canadian and I always have a love for my home country, so it's a great place to live, yes. And it is quite wide, and there are relatively few people living there for how big it is. You're right about that. Okay, Abo says, I'm willing to live in Canada because I heard, you could take out about it, you could just say, I heard it's nice. I'd be willing to live in England because nature is everywhere. People are so good in fellowship, the weather is so excellent. Great, Sam, great sentence, thank you for that one. I've never been to England myself, but I'd love to go. Great, so these are great questions and great sentences. Let's keep it up. Now, willingness is just the noun form, basically, of willing, or to be willing to do something. Willingness is the quality of willing. So the quality or state of being ready and prepared to do something. It's the same idea as willing. Those two are the same. They're very closely related. Let's look at some examples. It's clear from his letter that he has a willingness to help. It's clear from his letter that he has a willingness to help. So imagine you receive this letter from someone who really wants to help you with whatever you're doing. It's clear that he has a willingness. You could also say it's clear that he's willing to help, and it would mean essentially the same thing. Those would mean the exact same thing. The next sentence, soldiers must have a willingness to die. Soldiers must have a willingness to die. Okay, so if you're going to be a soldier, if you're going to fight in war, part of you must be willing to die. You must have a willingness to die. Again, it's the quality, so you can talk about having a quality, willingness to die. And this is, again, so this is another perfect example of willingness, willing. Obviously, people don't want to die, hopefully, but they're willing to in certain situations. So soldiers are willing to die. They don't want to die, of course, but they're prepared to. They're ready to. So So that's the difference here. Willing and willingness. They're very similar in that sense. Here's an article from the news. Theresa May, the Prime Minister of England. Theresa May's willingness to change her mind is a good thing. Theresa May's willingness to change her mind is a good thing. So Theresa May is willing to change her mind, and that's a good thing. Of course, obviously, that's a good thing to have. Especially if you're a politician, you want to be flexible. I think politicians in general are very stubborn, and it's not a very good thing. So you need a willingness to change your mind. That's something that's very important. My question, what must you be willing to do if you want to be a doctor? What must you be willing to do if you want to be a doctor? Try and use the word willingness here. So try and use that noun form. You could say, here's my example, you must have a willingness to work very long hours. You must have a willingness to work very long hours. My brother who came here recently, he's back in Canada now, and he's starting his residency, which means his official training to be a doctor. And his hours, I think starting on July 1st, so in a few days, are going to be very, very long. But he has a willingness to work those hours. He's willing to work those long hours. So why don't you tell me what else doctors need to have a willingness to do? Oh, I just lost the chat room. Give me a second here. Let's see. Sorry, give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. So let's see. Sadawat, if I could choose, I'd be willing to live in un-English speaking country. Sadawat, you need un-English speaking country because I'd have a chance to practice English every day. That is a really, really complicated sentence that you almost wrote perfectly. You just need live in un-English speaking country. Other than that, perfect. Really great job. I'm really impressed by that. Great work. Okay. Let's see. Nadu says, I would be willing to live in Indonesia because of what I heard about its people and their mode of living. Great sentence. Perfect. Another very complicated one. That's really great. Good job. RJ says, hi. Hello, RJ. Thanks for joining. Jonathan says, hello, Jacob teacher, or teacher Jacob. This is my first time here. Greetings from Mexico. Wow, someone from Mexico. Hello, Jonathan. I've been to Mexico a few times, and I love your country very much. So thank you for joining me tonight, and welcome. Sadawat says, I must have a willingness to be empathy, to understand parents' illness. That's a difficult one. We're talking about empathy, but you would say, to fix the grammar, I must have a willingness to empathize. You want to use the verb there, to empathize with my parents' illness. But empathy would be a weird one there because you want to, I think a more appropriate one would be sympathize. Empathize means you're actually feeling what they feel, kind of. So you'd be feeling your parents' illness. If you had the same illness, then you could empathize with them. So empathize seems a little inappropriate there. Empathy in general seems a little inappropriate there. I think you're talking more about sympathy. I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Cooper says, I would be willingness, night shift if I were a doctor. So you would need a willingness. Remember, we're using the noun form here. Willingness is a noun, so I would, it's a quality too that we're talking about. So I would need the willingness to work night shifts, you could say, Kubra. Alan says, willingness to be a doctor needs your great efforts in studying hard and forget distraction, things such as chat and social media, at least in order to get your doctorate degree. Long sentence. Alan, simplify, simplify, simplify. I understand what you're saying. There are lots of things that doctors need to do and lots of sacrifices that doctors need to make. Things like social media and the other things that you spoke of. But, oh, geez. Sadawat, sorry, I misread. I saw parents before. Right, you wrote patient, not parents. Okay? To understand patient's illness, you must have a willingness to, again, I think sympathy would probably be more appropriate there in terms of what we're talking about. But yes, Alan, before, sorry I cut you off. Simplify, simplify. Try and simplify your sentences, my friend. Nadu says, I must have a willingness to see my patients without crying. Okay, that's an interesting one. I must have a willingness to see my patients without crying. Nadu, I think what you're talking about there more is the ability, rather. You need the ability to see your patients without crying. So I think what would be more appropriate there is I must have the ability. That would be a better way to put that. Abo, I give some advice for my friend. He needs to be a doctor. I said to him, you must have a willingness to study hard to be a doctor. Yes, you have to study hard, of course. Sam says, I'm supposed to have real sacrifice willingness to be a doctor. Okay, there's a lot going on in that sentence, Sam. I'm supposed to, you could say, I'm supposed to have the willingness to sacrifice many things. I must have the willingness to sacrifice many things to be a doctor. It's a confusing one there. I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to say. I think you're trying to say you must have the willingness to sacrifice many different things in your life in order to be a doctor. Okay, great sentences again. Thank you so much for participating. We've got 2 more words that I'm going to talk about. We're going to stop. We're going to get rid of the word will now. That's enough of that word. Will, willing, willingness, enough of that. Let's talk about intend. Okay, this was one of the words in the email. Now, intend is quite different. When you intend to do something, you have a plan, you have an objective, you have a purpose. It's very clear. It's what you intend to do. It's very clear and straightforward, usually. So, examples. I intend to call her after dinner. If I intend to call her after dinner, what that means is that's my plan. That is what I'm going to do. That is what will happen. That's what I want to happen. The movie was intended to be offensive and shocking. So again, we can also talk about art in this way. We can describe a movie or a song, what the objective or the purpose was of that art. So if a movie was intended to be offensive and shocking, it means that that was the plan. The people who made that movie, they planned for it to be offensive and shocking. That's the plan. It was intended. Here is a question that you might hear a reporter ask a politician or someone running for president. What do you intend to do about the problem of unemployment? What do you intend to do about the problem of unemployment? It means, what's your plan? How do you plan on dealing with the problem of unemployment, people not having jobs? So again, it's very clear. It's a plan, objective, and purpose of something. From the news, I didn't intend to kill him, says man accused of murdering David Kingsbury. So this is a headline from the news. I guess someone who is on trial for murder. He said, I didn't intend to kill him. So he's saying, I wasn't planning on killing him. It wasn't my intention. It wasn't my purpose. I didn't have that objective to kill him. What is something that you intend to do in the next 5 years? What is something that you're going to do basically in the next 5 years that you intend to do? That's your plan. For me, in the next 5 years, maybe not 5 years, maybe a little more, in between 5 and 10, I intend to start a family of my own. I'd like to have my own family. I'd like to be a father and a husband and all of those things. So that's something that I intend to do in the next 5 to 10 years, maybe. We'll see. So tell me, what's something that you intend to do in the next 5 years? And again, I'm losing the YouTube. I think they changed their. I used to be able to put the live chat in a different window, but I think YouTube changed something, so I have to go back and forth. Okay, I have you here. Let's see. Jonathan, you must have the willingness to study English hard in order to achieve your goals. Yes, you must have the willingness to study English hard in order to achieve your goals. Well, if your goals are to do something related to the English language, then yeah, you need to study English hard, of course. Great sentence, Jonathan. That's perfect. GoFriend says, hi, I have a willingness to work hard to meet the deadline. Good. I have a willingness, spelling error there, but I have a willingness to work hard to meet the deadline. A willingness to work hard. Great. Alan, willingness to visit poor people because of your responsibility than because of money, beneficial matters. Okay, you're talking about two very different things here, willingness and responsibility. So again, Alan, I don't exactly know which kind of thing which sentiment you're hoping to communicate. Tell me again, try that one again and simplify. Give me simple sentences. Jonathan says, I intend to go to Alberta to study a master's degree. Okay, cool. Jonathan, I grew up in Alberta. I was born in Vancouver. I moved to Calgary when I was 11 years old. And I think you'll love Alberta. The people there are really, really great. Some of the best people I've met in the world. So yeah, I hope you have a great time in Alberta. Tell me, where are you studying? Where are you taking your master's degree? Alejandra says, good morning, teacher. Good morning, Alejandra. It's evening over here, so good evening to you. Abo says, I intend to get a job, get married, and get a master's degree. So Abo has a busy 5 years ahead of him. Good luck to you. That sounds really exciting and challenging. A lot of work, so good luck. Cooper says, I intend to finish university, learn Spanish and Arabic, and get a job. You need get a job. Take a sip of water. Great sentence, though. And again, that is a lot of work, too. But 5 years is a long time. We can accomplish many things in 5 years. Alan says, I intend to implant hair in order to fix my bald head. Well, I don't know much about that, but I do listen to a podcast called the Joe Rogan Podcast, and he tried to do something similar. He had a hair transplant or whatever they're called, and he really regretted it. I'm not saying don't do it, but that's all I know about it. I know that he really, really regretted it, and he, after a while, embraced his baldness, and it looks good on him now, or he's at least comfortable with it. But thanks for the sentence, regardless, Alan. That made me laugh. That was a good one. Thank you. Sadawat says, I intend to travel to a country that I've never been to. One country a year for 5 years straight. Really cool. Well, where do you have any in mind, Sadawat, that you want to go to? Any countries in particular? Abo says, thanks. You're welcome. Sam says, I am intend. You don't need I intend. I intend, Sam. I intend to grab a very nice job around my place. I intend to be a professor. Ooh, that is a difficult job. Good for you. We wouldn't really say grab a job. We don't really use that to talk about getting a job. You could the most natural way to phrase it would be I intend to get a very nice job around my place. That's what I would say. Nadu says, in the next 5 years, I intend to move to the USA in order to start a new life with my future husband and get my master's degree there. Well, all of us have some very big plans, and it's good to hear. It's actually, it's nice to talk to people who are inspired to do many different things. It makes me feel more inspired. So thank you both for the sentences and for making me feel inspired. Let's keep going. We have one more word that I want to look at, a quick sentence from Jonathan here. I intend to go to the University of Alberta to study biochemistry. I was in Alberta 2 years ago, and I fell in love with your country. Almost perfect. That's really cool, Jonathan. I actually went to the University of Alberta for 1 year. I studied there. So that's really cool. We went to the same school. So you're living in Edmonton then. You're going to be living there. And I think I have my cousin's husband, I think, studied biochemistry there and said that it was a really good program. So I think they have a really good program there. Anyways, good luck to you. That's really cool. And I'm glad you enjoy Canada. Let's keep going. The last one, hope. So this is quite different. You can think of hope as a desire for something to happen if possible. So it's less strong than intend. It's something you want to happen if it's possible, okay? Examples. I hope to visit Russia in the next few years. I hope to visit Russia. What that means is I want to visit Russia in the next few years. If possible, if it doesn't happen, it's not the worst thing in the world. That's kind of what this means. It's more light. It's a desire, a soft desire kind of. I hope to visit Russia in the next few years. You could say, I was hoping for sun this weekend. So the past progressive here, I was hoping for sun this weekend, but it looks like it's going to rain. So we're talking about the weather. I was hoping for sun, but it looks like it's going to rain. I hope she's doing well wherever she is. Imagine you're talking to your ex, or you're thinking about your ex-girlfriend. You haven't spoken to her in a long, long time. You could say, I hope she's doing well. I wish her to be doing well wherever she is. I hope she's doing well. So, here is an example from the news. South Korean president hopes for North Korean participation at the 2018 Games. So next year, in 2018, the Olympics will be here in Korea, and the South Korean president hopes for North Korean participation. He hopes that North Koreans will participate in the 2018 Olympic Games. Means he wants them to participate if it's possible. If it happens, good. Okay? My last question for you today. What is something you hope to do in your lifetime? While you are alive on this earth, what is something that you hope to do? What is something you hope to do? I hope that I'm able to go to Russia and to visit the grave of the author Leo Tolstoy. He's one of my favorite authors, and they still have the place where he lived all taken care of, so everything is still exactly as it was when he was alive. His grave is there too. I hope that one day I'm able to do that. That's a dream of mine. Tell me in the chat section, what is one thing that you hope to do in your lifetime? And I hope that you understand the difference between intend and hope and will, willingness, and willing. Again, they're all somewhat related, but we use them in different situations. And I hope that is clear after this lesson. Alan says, Alan, always with the beautiful, sexy girls. Alan says, I hope one beautiful, sexy girl one day comes to me and says, I'm in love with you, unconditionally and with pure love. With purely love. With pure love, okay? Well, I hope that too for you, Alan. If that's what you want, that would be nice. So, you make me laugh, Alan. Thank you for the sentence. What else do you guys hope to achieve in the next few years? Or sorry, in your lifetime. What else is something you hope to achieve? I hope to achieve all my goals, says Abo. Yeah, well, I hope you do too. That's it's a difficult one. All of us have many goals, and sometimes it's hard to, well, it's almost impossible to achieve all of them, right? I guess it depends on the goal. Sam says, I hope to travel all around America as a tourist. That would be fun. I also hope that one day I'm able to take a road trip, especially, I think, around America. That would be a lot of fun. One time when I was younger, I drove with my friends all the way from Vancouver to San Diego, which is just north of Mexico. We drove all along the west coast. It was a lot of fun. I agree that this class is very heavy. However, you explain very crystal clear. I really appreciate it. Well, thank you, Sadawat. I was a little concerned as I was planning this class that it was going to be difficult. It was difficult for me. I had to study a lot of this too before or while I was preparing this lesson. So it's quite difficult to articulate some of the differences, especially between will, willing, and willingness. Those are very confusing, even for native speakers too. So don't feel bad if you're confused at all. Kubra says, I hope to learn at least 5 languages and help the people in a bad case around the world. Okay, well that is a lot. 5 languages is a lot. I know like 1.5 myself, so good for you. That's a big goal, and of course, a very noble cause to help people who are in bad situations around the world. Great. Well, that is all that I have for you today. I have to do another live lesson in about an hour on the English Language School Facebook page. If you want to know about that, just go to Facebook. If you want to watch that live presentation, go to Facebook, search English Language School, and it should come up right away. And I'll be going live on that page in about an hour's time at 10 o'clock p.m. Korean Standard Time. So that's in 1 hour and 15 minutes. We have another sentence from Nadu. It says, I hope to go around the world to meet different people and have friends from all around the world. That would be nice. That's something that we all, or I don't know, well, not everyone I should say, but having friends from all around the world, traveling around the world, I think many people hope to do that too in their lifetime. Okay? So thank you all so much. I'm going to say again, if you're watching right now, I'm in the process of, starting next Monday, I'm going to be testing out this new idea that I have for a club that I'm working on, an English language club. All of the information about that, there is a live presentation that I did yesterday talking about the club. The link to that is in the description. The sign-up form that you need is in the description as well. It's only $10 for the 2 weeks that I'm going to be running this trial period. It's really just so that I can test this idea that I have. Check out the live presentation in which I talk about this plan. And if you're interested, if it's something you'd be willing to try, then sign up. Let me know. Anyways, thank you all so much. And I will see you again. The next live lesson on my YouTube channel will be on Friday. So the same time, 8 o'clock p.m. Korean Standard Time on Friday. I'll meet you here. Friday, we're going to be talking about conspiracy theories. I'll leave you there. So have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye.